Hello everyone. So as the dates for final submission of your IA is coming very close, so in this short tutorial I'll guide you on preparing your folder for the final submission. So if you have already finalized your internal assessment folder, then your folder should contain these four files and folders. One is the cover page, second documentation, third product, and fourth screencast. Now, screencast should be the last thing that you should be doing after completing every other part of your IA, and your screencast should contain the demonstration of your product functionality, especially the non-basic techniques. The maximum length of this screencast should be 5 minutes. Now, let's look at each of these files and folders one by one. First, let's have a look at the documentation folder. Now, in the documentation folder, when you received the forms.zip folder, it already had the documents in the RTF format. Now you were required to edit those RTF files and then finally save them as PDF. Now you have to make sure that the file names which you have given to these documents must exactly be the same as it was in forms.zip documentation folder. The only change would be that you will be saving those files in the PDF format. So if your documentation folder contains any of these file names whose names are different, then that's going to create a problem on the cover page. And the best way to check if your file names are correct or not, you go directly onto the cover page and click on each of these links to check if your files are opening or not. So when I click on initial investigation, you can see that the file is opening on the browser. I go to the next one, consultation with the client. This is also opening. So it would be a good idea that you check each of these links to be sure that your file names are in order. If any of these links are not working, the only reason would be that you have changed the file name in the documentation folder. And if so is the case, then you don't have to make any changes here, but you have to go back to the documentation folder and check that your file name matches with what is given here on this document. You don't even have to change the case sensitivity. So if it is criteria_C_project with P as capital, make sure that in documentation folder also it is capital P. If you change any of these file names, that would have two problems. Number one, your link will not work on cover page. And number two, you will lose score in criterion G for incorrect file format. So in short, your file names in the documentation folder must exactly be the same. Now, if you don't want to keep any additional files in the documentation folder, it's completely your wish. You would be marked only on the basis of these documents which are in the PDF format. So if your documentation folder is looking cluttered, I would strongly recommend that delete rest everything and just keep these PDF files. Now coming to the product folder. You may have developed the product under two categories. The first category where you have hosted your product online. For example, a web page created on Wix. Second category where you have created a product offline on your computer, which could be a web page, it could be a spreadsheet, it could be a video file, it could also be a database. So in that case, you have to store all the files, all the documents, all the supporting files that you use to create your product into this folder. If it is an offline file, for example, a database or a PDF or a video file, it's not difficult to place it here. But if you have created an online product, for example, Wix web page, then I would strongly recommend that you open that page on your browser, go to the file menu, and then export the web page to your local machine. So when you export, it will create a folder, and then that entire folder needs to be copied into the product folder. So the purpose of product folder is for the examiner to see the way you have developed the product. If your product folder is empty or doesn't contain any documents, you are going to be penalized in criterion G. So please make sure that your files, folders, etc., which you use to create the product are stored here. Now coming to the next part, which is cover_page.html. You need to make certain changes on this cover page before you make the final submission. And those changes can be done either using an HTML editor, for example, something like a Dreamweaver, or if you don't have those kind of applications, then you can even do them using the text editors on Mac or Windows platform. If you are using Windows platform, you can use Notepad. And if you're using Mac operating system, then you can use text editor. So since I'm using Mac operating system, so I will show you the editing of cover page using the text editor. So there are two different things that we need to do on the cover page. I'll first tell you the first part. And for doing that, you need to right click on coverpage.html and open this document with text editor. When text editor opens this document, you will see the document in exactly the same format as it looks on your browser. But if you open this document on Notepad on Windows, it will show you the HTML document. So it won't show this formatted shape, but it will show you the text in the HTML format. But it doesn't matter, because even in HTML you can go to the relevant sections and make necessary changes and then save it back as HTML. Now in this case, there are certain things that we need to change. One, that candidate name should not contain any value. It needs to remain blank. Second, school number also needs to be blank. The project title would be the title of the project by which one can easily identify the nature of your product. Candidate session number needs to be blank. Client name, you have to put the name of your client. Occupation, the occupation of your client. We'll come to this links to product a little later. First, let's talk about the other part. Now last but not the least, you need to mention the word count, for which you can bring the cursor here and you can type the word count as whatever. Now this word count needs to be within 2000 words. So if you think that you're exceeding, you're going beyond 2000, then I strongly recommend that you go back to your documentation and make necessary changes to make it fit within the limit of 2000. So these are the changes which we need to make on this document. One thing more, that if you think that your product requires certain guidelines for the moderator to access that, you can mention that over here. For example, let's say you created a database and there's a password to your database. You can mention here that the password for the database is this. This helps the examiner to access your product if they wish so. Once you have applied these changes to the cover page, it's always a good idea to open the page in a browser to see that the changes have been applied. So one change we added was the word count, which you can see is visible here. Now in the next part, we are going to learn how to edit the links to the product. Your product can either be online, for example, a web page hosted on Wix, or it can be an offline file stored in the products folder, for example, a video file, a spreadsheet, a database file, or simply a PDF. So we will see how we are going to link our product through this link. Now, for example, if I click on this link, it is taking me to a web page which is hosted locally on the product folder. It's not going online. You can see here the path is going to my local folder and trying to access the document from there. Similarly, if your product is hosted online, it should take you to that online address. For example, if my address is google.com and if I click on product, it should take me to google.com. Now, in order to edit the link to our product, we will again open the cover page in text editor, but this time with slightly different way. So first you open text editor and then you select the file and go to options. Here you see ignore rich text command, so we click on this. Because now our objective is to open the cover page file in the HTML format rather than rich text format. So when you click on ignore rich text commands and open the document, you will see a document opening with HTML code. Now don't worry about so much of text in your document. We are not required to change too many things. We are only required to change the links to the product, and for that you can search links to, which will take you directly to the line of code which we are required to change. Now here you see that href equals file user Rajesh Shah desktop website. So this is currently giving us the path of the local file where the document is stored. We need to change this path to an online web page which we want to access if someone clicks on links to product. And for doing that, we will change this part ahref equals within double quotes, change this to https://www.google.com, considering that I want to open google.com by clicking that product link. In your case, you will actually be putting the web address of your web page that you have created. Once I have done this, then I simply have to save this. You don't need to close this file because first we want to check if this is working, and if it is working, then we are done. So I go back to the browser and I click on product again. So it's not bringing, so something is wrong. Maybe I have not saved the file. Okay, now I have saved and I go back to the, okay, sorry, not this. I go back to the cover page, load it again to refresh and click on product, and you see here that it is trying to bring us to, okay, now there's a problem that we have written www 4 times, because of which it is not opening a web page. So I go back to the editor and here I change this to make it correctly spelled, save it, go back to the cover page, refresh and click on product, and now you can see that we are able to open the page through the products link. For the second category, where your document is stored on the products folder and you want examiner to access that file through the link on the cover page, for doing that, what you need to do is come to the same place, links to, and here you can see that ahref equals product, which is the name of the product on your folder, slash, and this should be the name of the file which you want the examiner to be able to open by clicking on the link. Now if we go inside website folder under product, you see there's a file with the name index.html, and the same file has been referenced here for the examiner to open it directly from the cover page. If your file name is something like let's say abc.xls, you will only be changing this file name. So as a result, when the examiner will click on product, it will directly take them to the product folder and open that document for them. So please make sure that you must change this in order to make the link to your product function. And once you have tried all this, then you zip your folder, take it to some other computer, unzip there and try to see that all your links are working. If your links are not working on other computer, then you have to come back to your computer and see why it is not working and make the corrections. And now after everything is in order, then you can see that I have compressed the file in the zip format, which you will go to your SharePoint folder, and inside your SharePoint folder you can see that I have created a new folder with the name final-zip. Go into that and copy and paste your zip file there. That zip file will be checked by us and will be used for moderation. I hope you find this tutorial useful. If any queries, feel free to get back to me and I'll be happy to assist. All the very best.